So before I move on, some things I want to take note is that this girl was exploited. This girl was essentially a slave. She was exploited by these men, using her gifts for personal gain, for financial gain. These men were using her. And I find it very interesting that this story comes right after a story of a woman who was sincerely praying, you know, a woman that's doing the right, and all of a sudden you have the next story, the next moment, this girl you have this girl that's possessed by a devil that's also being exploited. And how I just felt it might be a little off topic, but that we are called to those people, to save those who are exploited, to reach, to be a part of ending the sex slave and all different kind of slavery going on. That's something that was really close to my heart a couple years ago when I went to Cambodia, and even before that, and just how important it is for as Christians to step into that cause. But and then so this girl keeps on bothering them, saying the same thing for like a couple days, over and over and over. And something I thought of is that no man likes a nag. So so I got to a point where I was like, okay, that's enough. I can't take this. But so I thought that was just a little funny to think of. But that Paul was grieved with this girl, that she constantly, so it was like, enough, out comes the Spirit. And then what happens after that? So verse 19, and when her masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paul and Silas and drew them into the marketplace to the rulers. So what happened? Their money flow stopped. That's why these men had no problem with Paul until their money flow stopped. And they're like, uh-oh, we don't like this. That's why we have like some friends that are in Brazil and save women off the street. What can be very dangerous for them? They're taking technically another person's product. And then that can be very dangerous for if pimps see that, and that can be very dangerous for them. But again, these men had no problem with Paul and the disciples until their money flow stopped. And so they brought them to the rulers of that place and brought them to the magistrates, saying, these men, being Jews, do exceedingly trouble our city and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. And now, part of these accusations are false. They're false accusations. But they get the crowd riled up that they riled up against these false accusations and put them in jail. But these are false accusations that they were bringing trouble, because there's no mention of any trouble until, again, the money flow stopped. That was the trouble that they had to deal with. And the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes and commanded to beat them. And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely, who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in stocks. So now Paul and Silas are in a prison with false accusations. They are falsely imprisoned, all because they messed with the idol of these men, the idol of Mammon. And that's really the main reason why these men are in prison, not because of the accusations as they say. But what's interesting is, as Paul extended freedom to the girl, their freedom was taken away. But as we'll learn, is that even though you are physically bound, that doesn't define your freedom. Your condition doesn't define your freedom. What God has done for you defines your freedom. So they are put in prison, the most secure location, so like the worst part of the prison, unlawfully and wrongly imprisoned. And then verse 25, and at midnight Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises to God, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. And the keeper of the prison, awakening out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. But Paul cried with a loud voice, saying, "Do yourself no harm, for we are all here." So I'll go back to verse 25. Your praise can be the key to your breakthrough. Your praise and your prayer can be the key to your breakthrough.
Yep.
And again, although they were physically bound, they were free.
Yep.
So again, your current condition does not have to define
That's right.
your freedom.
Tell the saints.
That your freedom is not based on your current condition. Also, what I find interesting that it mentions that the other prisoners heard. That means your prayers and your praise can also be the key to other people's breakthrough, to other people's salvation, to other people's condition. That it can overflow into that. Because they heard, and also them hearing their praises and their prayers kept them for doing the right thing, not escaping. Right? Paul said, we're all here. That means all the prisoners stayed put. If the other prisoners were truly bad men, once your shackles are done, are off, most of us be booking out of there. like Usain Bolt, like the Olympian, you'll be so fast out of there. But their praises and their prayers affected the other prisoners in that prison. And it affected them so much that they stayed put. They did the right thing and stayed put. I think that's so powerful. That it mentions that wasn't just for Paul and Silas, it was for everyone in that prison. And then we see the jailer, because he assumes the worst. The jailer assumes the worst and is going to kill himself because he knows if they did escape, the Romans were going to kill him anyway. But Paul cried out. Again, this is also a message for suicide prevention, but Paul cried out and stopped this man. That means there was a command on his voice. There was a command on Paul's voice that stopped him from harming himself. And then verse 29, then he called for a light. This is the jailer, called for a light and sprang in and came trembling and fell down before Paul and Silas and brought them out and said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" In NT Wright's version, he says, "How can I get out of this mess?" Which I like that he says that. But the jailer says, "How can I get out of this mess?" And the mess he means is the mess that was in him, that was around him. How can I get out of this mess? That God's love and mercy will reveal our current situation and give us a way out. That he can take the blinders off of our eyes and be like, oh man, I am just surrounded by just mess. And it can be overwhelming sometimes when God reveals our mess to us, but he doesn't just leave us in that mess. He'll be like, no, come on, we can clean this up together. Some of us mothers here, we have little kids. What do you have to do at first? You have to help them clean up, right? You can't expect them to put everything in every little bin unless you show them, unless you help them clean up. And then eventually what happens, then eventually they can do it themselves and they can help others clean up. So how much of a picture it is with God and us. God's like, no, we're going to clean up your mess. I'm going to show you how to do it. Now I release you to help others to clean up their messes. And so that the jailer just decided to look to these men because he felt the command on his voice. He felt the love that God did not want him to harm himself.
That's right.
God did not want that for this man. And so the jailer runs to him. I want salvation. I want this freedom. I bet you the jailer also heard their prayers and their praise. I would assume, it doesn't say, but I would assume that he probably also heard the prayer and the praise. So verse 31, and they said, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you shall be saved and your house. Third time. Salvation wasn't just for the jailer, it was also for his house. Again, the third time it's mentioned in this chapter that salvation is not just for you, it's for your household. Again, I keep on saying that because I really think in this, there was more. I read this, I believe that's a promise some of us need to act on and believe on. That salvation isn't just for us, it's for our house. It's for our household. It's for our family, our extended family. And to really contend for that and pray for that. That it's not just for us, it's for our house. Verse 32, and they spoke to him the word of the Lord and to all that were in his house. That means he also took them to our house. The same response from Lydia. You know, I heard you. I want that. Now come to my house. They also, if we further on, he took them to the same hour that night, washed their stripes, and was baptized, he and all his immediately. So also him and his household were baptized, and they also tended to Paul and Silas. They washed their wounds. They tended to them. So again, they received the love of God, and they responded with wanting to care and to make room in their house and to hospitality, that God also wants us to respond to help others and respond to make room, respond with hospitality. And when he had brought them into the house, he set meat before them, so he fed them and rejoiced, believing in God with all his house. Third time in like 3 verses. How many times is it mentioned? Again, him and his house. Him and his house. Him and his house. And when it was day, the magistrates sent the sergeant, saying, let those men go. And the keeper of the prison told this, saying to Paul, the magistrates have sent to let you go. Now therefore depart and go in peace. But Paul said to them, they have beaten us openly, uncondemned, being Romans. So now he's saying, we're not going to leave this here. And just, because what they're trying to do here is kind of get them out. Because they found out, one, that they were Romans, so they beat their own in public, but with false accounts. And so what they're trying to do is, let's just make this all go away. And Paul's like, no, we're going to reveal this injustice right now. We're going to reveal what's going on here, and let's fix this. He wants to reveal the injustice. We are called to reveal injustice where we are. We're called not just sweep it under the rug, not just to sweep it under. We are called to bring a light to it. Paul said to them, they have beaten us openly uncondemned, being Romans, and have cast us into prison, and now they thrust us out secretly. Nay, verily, but let them come themselves and bring us out. And the sergeants told these words to the magistrates, and they feared when they all heard they were Romans. And they came and besought them and brought them out and desired them to depart out of the city. So I also believe this is a call for us to pray for righteousness in our cities. To call out the injustice, just the wrongful doings of where we are, and to pray for the righteousness of our cities. And in the last 40, we bring it back to Lydia. And they went out of the prison and entered into the house of Lydia. When they had seen the brethren, they comforted them and departed. So within this chapter, I really feel, again, that promise that salvation is for you and your household. And I want to pray for that before we end. But 3 times, 3 stories we see that. We saw it with Timothy, we saw it with Lydia, and we saw it with the jailer. That salvation was for them and their house, and that you can be the open door to salvation in your household. That you can be the start of inheritance, of a faith inheritance for your household. It doesn't matter what you got, what you didn't get, that you can be the one to open that door for your household. Also, I think there's a flip side. There's the question, what are you opening the door to in your household? If you can open up salvation, That means you can also open the door to the opposite. So that's a question we must ask ourselves. What are we opening the door to in our household? Are we opening up to truth, or are we opening up to lies? Are we opening up to good things, or are we opening up to bad things? And that's not just for mothers, it's for fathers, it's for anyone. What are you opening the door to in your household? That there's a promise here, but there's also a warning. And with a lot of promises, there are also warnings, because if the one is true, that means the opposite can be true.
Yep.
So I really felt like it was a deep question that I want us to prayerfully consider and really apply, and also to contend for those in our family, extended family, that are not saved. Because if this is a promise of God, then I say, God, I call on your promise that my household will be saved, that I contend for that family relative, that sibling, child, parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever, that I call upon that promise that salvation can be for my household.
That's right.
And then also, because I think when Adam and I tag team a while ago, I also feel that prayer is not just for them, it's for us, because sometimes it's also our heart that needs to change toward them. So again, prayer is not just for them, but it's also for us. Because sometimes those people that need to get saved also maybe have done something to us that we think was down and dirty. Well, you need to forgive them. Because that unforgiveness can also be the chains that are holding things back. So we need to pray to change our heart as well as theirs. So what is God asking for us in this time? Because also earlier we talked about our yeses. That Paul's yes was actually, where did I put that? But Paul's yes to God was actually God's heart for Lydia, for the jailer, for the girl that was possessed. So God loved those people so much that he sent a vision to Paul to send him there. So the yes we're saying to God could actually be revealing God's heart for somebody else if he's sending us to go somewhere. That God loved those people so much, he shut all those doors, like, no, Paul, I have to have you deal with these people first. I need you to love on Lydia right now. I need you to save that girl from exploitation. I need you to save that jailer. This is how it's just like total God. Think of how God sets up things. Sends them again, closes the door, sends them to Macedonia. First they go to Lydia's prayer meeting, blow up the prayer meeting. They have salvations there. They go more into the city, meet with this girl that was possessed, gets her free. Then that puts them in jail. But then if you think about it, God even used that instance in jail to do what? Save the jailer.
Yep, come on.
So there's times where sometimes we could be in a place, be like, God, what in the world are you doing?
Not stopping the kingdom. Yep.
But God's not stopping. He can use where you are.
Yep.
Even in your despair, like, I'm in jail. Oh my God, Lord, what are you doing? He'll say, don't, I got you. I put you here for a reason.
Yep.
So in those moments where you can be like, woe is me, we can ask, actually, God, why am I here? What do you have for me to do here that maybe I'm not seeing? Because maybe he won't let you out of there until you finally do what he's called you to do. And so kind of it's like, okay, why am I in this place? And again, for that prayer to change our heart toward the situation. What eyes are we looking through for that situation? Are we looking through the eyes of flesh where it's, woe is me? All we do is, when we come in context, all we do is tell them our problems. Rather than, or you can be someone of faith, like, I know I'm in this position right now, but guess what? I know God's got something. God's got something for me and also for others.
That's right.
Because what happened in the jail they weren't in the jail in that moment. God did have something for them, but God had a lot more for those prisoners and for that jailer. They might have seen that as like the worst place to be, but God had them in the best place at that time. So sometimes the worst place physically you can feel, or maybe not like as in health, but even like a physical place, it can feel like the worst place possible, but it could be the best place for someone else next to you because you're there. Because you can speak life. You can pray and you can praise. And that can affect others. That can bring life to others. You are called to bring life to others. no matter what's around you. Again, your surroundings does not dictate your freedom. Your surroundings does not have to dictate how you respond to something. Some of us, even myself, respond incorrectly because we just want to have that mirror and be like actually I have to look through the film, not of me, not of the flesh, but I need to look at it with God's eyes.
Yeah.
What is he asking me to do at this time? And we have to allow God to refine our path and allow him to guide us. And there is a question that I've really felt as a mother of the house, so to speak, that I want us to think God has given each one in this place a dream. Many dreams to do something. And some of us may feel like the dream we might have had years ago is dead. It's gone. But I want to encourage you that God does put things in us that are worth dreaming for.
Yep.
And maybe it has to be refined by God. Maybe it could be a vague dream. Maybe it's a dream that you were like, this isn't going to happen. But I want us to really, to kind of refocus. And I want to be an encourager to you guys to dream those dreams. And that it's never too late. It's never too late. And just, again, have God refine them. Like I said earlier, that we have to be okay with God's no's because his yeses are so much greater. And it's okay to shut the door to refine us. It's almost like a river that you'll flow better if you're flowing in the right direction. That sometimes things just borders need to be set up, boundaries need to be set up for you to flow better and toward the correct destination. So I just wanted to encourage you with that your dreams are real and your dreams are worth dreaming as long as you're dreaming with God.
That's right. Yep.
Your dreams are worth dreaming as long as you're dreaming with God.
Yeah.
So right now I want to pray for, again, that you are a doorway to salvation and for the salvation of us and our household. And I just want to pray for you guys. So God, we just stand on that promise that you've spoken 3 times and just in this one chapter, that salvation isn't just for us, it's for our household. So God, right now we declare salvation over our household.
Yes, Lord.
That sustaining salvation, that even our kids will live all their days knowing you and loving you.
That's right.
That even those that might be old right now, that they can change and they can love you all their days and live their days well.
That's right.
That we speak salvation in our immediate and our extended family, to our friends who are family.
Yeah.
That everyone who enters our physical household will feel your presence. God, may we be a carrier of your presence where we go. That our prayer and our praise can affect our workplace like it did the jail. Our prayer and our praise can affect wherever we go, or we go shopping, or in our houses and other people's houses, in our workplace, that we are bringers of light. So God, we stand on your promise for salvation of our household. God, and I just thank you for every person in here. I thank you for the dreams you've placed in our hearts. And I just feel like I just to say, dust off those dreams. That Holy Spirit, blow off the dust of those dreams and make them alive again. That we just speak life, overflowing life over every single person here, to speak life. God, and help us to see through your eyes. I know some of us here are in very difficult situations, but God, help us to see your eyes. Why have you placed me here? I feel like I'm in jail. Why have you placed me here? Help me see the prisoners. Help me see the jailers that I need to pray for, to bring salvation to them and their household. That allow my yes to be a catalyst for other yeses around me. I want to be a catalyst, God, for you. So God, I just thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.